Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Open Book Besties. I'm Misty Walker.
And I'm Kay Webster.
And we have a guest today.
Yay!
We have C.E. Ricci with us. Do you want to say hi?
I don't, this is going to be a very, very awkward. Sorry, guys, in advance.
Okay, Christy and I have a habit of inviting people like minutes before the show starts, and that's what happened today.
Yes, that's what our last guest, Jessica, we did that, or no, the time before. I was like, "Hey, you want to be on our show?" And she's like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Well, go get ready right now." And she's like, "Right now."
That's
like,
exactly what happened.
Yep, pretty much. It was like, Missy's like, okay, well, I'll send you a link. We'll be on in an hour. I'm like, wait, today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what's funny is I was actually writing with you and
Yeah.
you were like, "Hey, you want to go sprint in a room?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I see you type like 4 words and then you just ghosted on me. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then Misty's all like, "Yeah, she's going to come on our show today." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
That's what happened.
And I don't know what I was gonna say, but yeah, that's exactly what happened. She's like, today? Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Well, if anybody doesn't know C.E. Ricci, do you tell people your real name or do you just go?
Yeah, I go by Chelsea. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Chelsea writes the best romance. I mean, it is angsty, it is juicy, it is emotional. You guys have heard me on this show like gushing about her books. And I still remember the first time you were like, "Hey, will you read this book and tell me if it's okay?" Or like an early an arc. And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I literally, because you said you were a new author, and I expected, to be like, "Oh gosh, this is going to be a chore." I literally started reading it and I was like, "This is so good." And I was like devouring it. And I got to the end and I was like, "Oh my God, I need more. This is so good." And you're like, "Oh, you don't have to blow smoke up my butt." And I'm like, "Dude, I do not do this to people unless I love the book." And so
you gushed to me the whole time you were reading it. You were like, "I can't believe she's a new author. I can't believe this is her new first book. This is crazy. It's so good."
No, I was so proud.
Yeah, it was so funny because I got your DM on Facebook after you were done, and I was like sitting there reading it in my living room, and I'm like shaking, like my whole entire body was just shaking reading it. I'm like, oh my God, because it's like when someone you look up to, like you were my first ever read, so I was like, oh my God, like she likes my work. I was like, little kid like fangirling inside, trying to keep it together while I was talking to you because I was so excited.
Well, I was proud of you. I'm still proud of you.
Thank you.
You and Misty both have made me so proud. Y'all just came out of nowhere with these epic books and surprised the heck out of me. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm proud of y'all.
So, Chelsea, what inspired you to start writing?
Oh gosh. Well, I've been writing for a long time. So it's funny that, people say like, "Oh my God, that like Follow the River was your first book." And it's like, well, it was technically my first published book, but I've written, hundreds of thousands of words that will never see the light of day just for the hell of it, or just because I was just trying to get better at it. And I've always enjoyed it, even thought about going to school for it. But then I was like, what can I do with an English major besides, teach? So I went into a different field. And when the pandemic hit, I had a lot of free time because my job was like cut back on hours. And so I was like, you know what, might as well just pick it back up again. And it was right around the time that I had read for the first time. I had read Wicked Lies, and then I'd read Him and Us. And I was like, I kind of want to write some angsty, because a lot of my friends were like, you can't really find a lot of super angsty And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll write one. And then Follow the River was kind of born, and here we are.
Yes.
So
that's awesome. So you've always been a writer, but have you always like had the dream of publishing?
I always said I wanted to publish a book. I just to say that I did it, and if nothing ever came of it, nothing came of it, but it's kind of become like a dream come true in a way. So it's been really, really rewarding, I guess would be the best way to say it, because I never imagined having people be like, "When's the next thing coming?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but thank you for wanting more." Like, it's just a really, really good feeling.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Are you a pantser or a plotter?
I'm a big time plotter. It's really hard for me to pants. I can't even really write in order. I'm trying to teach myself to write from the beginning to the end. I like to write whatever comes to me, whether it be the end or the first spicy scene or whatever it might be. I just kind of jump around and then fill the holes in as I go. And that's worked for me so far, but I'm trying to get in the habit of just writing in order, letting the characters take me a little bit more rather than plotting out so specifically the way that I have in the past, if that makes sense. So,
well,
so how do you plot? Oh, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I think that I'd taken some kind of class recently or a video or something, and they were talking about how the more that you plot, the easier it is to write out of order. So if you write like steamy scenes better, then if you know where those are going to come in your story, if you're feeling blocked when you write, you just jump over there and write that steamy scene. And I was like, wow, I never considered it that way. Like, I just thought, you just write and write and write, and you just do it, whatever comes, even if it's the boring part, you just write it, And I never considered just jumping around and writing the easier parts or the parts that flow better, and, coming back to the part that, you felt stuck at.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things I usually write is a steamy scene, because that kind of gives me that kind of how their tension is going to go through the beginning of the book. So like for Follow the River, for example, the very first scene I wrote for them was the shower scene.
What?
Yeah, that was the first scene I wrote. And I was like, and people are like, what? When I tell them that, but even like Head Above Water, the first scene I wrote for that was the first kiss scene. But so it still was like a tension scene. It was something near the middle of the book that, it just kind of helped drive what was happening in the beginning, I guess, in a way for me. It doesn't make sense to someone who is a pantser, but in my head, it makes sense, I guess. So
that's why I want to start plotting, because I get into moods where I really want to write steamy scenes, but I can't, because I don't even know what's going to happen, 100 words from now. So it would be really nice if I could, when I'm in the mood, I can write all of those scenes. When I'm in like kill mode, I can write all of my kill scenes, that would be so nice.
Right? Yeah, I definitely think that it's a thing you have to teach yourself. Like, you can, basically what I did when I was first plotting out like the duet was I kind of just took my big scenes and put them in order of where they were going. Didn't necessarily have I had okay, there's gonna be 3 chapters between this happening and this happening. And then when I would write a scene, I'm like, okay, so I need something here to happen to build up to this. So that kind of drove what would happen before it, if that makes sense. So
yeah, well, me and Misty, we've both been hardcore pantsers, but we both are trying to plot more, and it's slow going for both of us, but I think we'll get there eventually. We're learning techniques and trying, because you're always trying to grow as a writer, and this, I feel like, will just make us stronger writers. It's hard when you're you've written so many books a certain way.
So I have a question. When you read a book, does it come alive like a movie in your head?
Yes, absolutely. I see it as a movie. It's very vivid in my brain. My husband and I have had this conversation before where I'm just like, you should try to read more. Try reading this book, try reading this book. And he's like, but all I see are words on a page. I don't see the movie in my head the way you do. And I'm like, I guess I understand why you don't like reading if you don't have that same experience. Which I think is really sad if someone can't. I think, Misty, you said that you don't see the movie in your head, right? You don't see it?
Not at all.
It's so sad. I feel bad for you.
Well, and what's sad too is everyone in my house except for my son is like me. We see the movie in our head, but my son, he was just totally just blown away. He was like, "You see it in your head?" And I'm like, "You don't see it in your head?" And he said, "No. Why do you think I like, reading manga and stuff?" And I was like, "Oh, because he sees the pictures, because he can't put it in his mind." I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this is why I have such a hard time plotting, because I can't visualize it. And so it's hard for me to like put things together without the words.
That actually might make a lot of sense, because even when I write like the whole thing, I see it in my brain as it's happening. It's the same type of thing. So I can see that being why.
I don't know. I can't figure it out. I sat in front of my computer for like an entire day trying to plot out my biker book. And yeah, I got some scenes. Oh, there goes my dog. Yeah, I got some scenes put together, but it was frustrating and hard for me because I don't feel like I can see, I don't know.
I totally get it. And I'm kind of that way right now with the story I'm working on. It's like I've sort of got it plotted, and I really need to just pause for a second and go back through and make sure I am like hitting all the stuff. But like I'm in the zone and I'm just, the words are flowing and, you know, just things are happening as they come out. And I'm like, yeah, let's go with it. Let's go with it, you know? And I'm like, I don't want to stop that and ruin the flow. And then, you know, I don't know. Plotting almost makes me feel like I've written the story already. And then I don't really want to write it. Or I get confused and think, did I already write that? You know, because I remember writing it with outline or whatever. So
yeah, that makes sense. But I think the biggest thing is, if you are a pantser going to plotting, that to not have to sit there and plot out every single thing that happens, just maybe give yourself the big scenes and give yourself that freedom between the, you know, the first kiss to the lead up of the first steamy scene, whatever it might be. Like, give yourself the freedom to explore and let the characters take you in that journey, but still have an idea of, you know, you need to get from A to B in a way that makes sense, but let them do it the way they want to, if that makes sense.
That's a good idea. I mean, cause you're basically saying like put like a bare bones plot together with just the basic XYZ happens or whatever. And I think that's what I need to do, because then I can be like, okay, I know that, you know, about 60% of the way through, I want this big thing to happen. So I'll just work up to it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
We need a plotting for dummies course, I think.
I've been taking these classes, I swear, and reading the books, but it's not clicking as easily as I would expect. You know, I don't know. It's taking some work.
But all of our scheduling classes are working.
Yeah.
Because both of us have sat down with a calendar recently and mapped out our year.
Right.
Is that something that you've done, Chelsea?
Yeah, so I actually booked all of my editing dates through December.
What?
I have release dates. I'm not telling anybody them. I'm not even putting pre-orders up because I don't want to cancel anything. But I almost had to, because I have like weddings this year and I have all these other things, signings happening. So I have to like plan around them. So it's almost more imperative for me to do that this year than it was last year.
Yeah. That's what I did. I booked all of my editing and formatting and everything.
You guys are so like ahead of the time. I have nothing booked, nothing scheduled. I'm just trying to ride this freedom wave.
But you did sit down with a calendar.
I did. Okay, so for me, I don't know if you guys are this way, but I tend to think I can do more than I actually can. And because I will take like a time in my life where I wrote a book really fast and think, okay, well, that week I wrote, 60,000 words. I can do 60,000 words in a week if I had to. So like 10,000 words is nothing, and that's like how I base it. And then I'm like, okay, so 10,000 times 6 weeks. Okay, that gives me a book or whatever. So I could do, 20 books or whatever, something outrageous. And then it's like, then I can't do it. And then I get all stressed out and I'm overwhelmed and I have all this stuff and I'm like, what's happening? I don't understand. And I sat down, a few weeks ago and I was like trying to like map out my year, because I had taken that webinar with Alessandra Torrey, and she had talked about like a business plan and like your goals and everything. And so I was like trying to go with that and then incorporate my schedule and all this stuff. And still, it just wasn't like fitting right. Cause I had told myself I'm going to write 10,000 words a week. that seems easy. Okay. But then I was like, I don't think I'm writing 10,000 words a week. And so I started tracking every word this month. And so far this month, I have not written 10,000 words per week. It's more like 4,000 words per week. So then I sat down and thought, well, why didn't I get 10,000 words that week? So then I looked and I'm like, oh, okay, well, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I am slammed busy doing my online bookstore up here. Okay, so those days are out. And then it was like, okay, so maybe Tuesday and Thursday I could do some writing, but I don't want to put too much pressure on myself. So what if I just got like a chapter? And so then I was like, okay, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a chapter each on both of those days. So I'm getting like 4,000 words. And I'm like, okay, wow, what a loser, Christy. You're such a loser. And then I'm like, no, I'm not a loser. Like, this is realistic. I need to be realistic with myself. I need to like come clean that I'm not able to do this. Like, there's so much other stuff that I'm trying to do as my career.
Yeah, you're doing so many more things now than you were in years past, where it was easy for you to write 10,000 words a day.
And last year I told myself I'm going to focus on the business side of this and still write, but not write in a breakneck speed. And so what I was telling you guys before we started is I'm in this group called Wide for the Win. I don't know if you guys are in that one, but it's on Facebook, and it's basically a group for people who publish wide. And so they're always having like tips and whatever. And so I found this group, and there was a link to a YouTube video, and this girl, Sarah Cannon, and her company is heartbreathings.com. But anyway, she's also a author, and she was doing a planning for 2022. And she basically was like, I have friends who were putting out like 20 books a year, and then they went down to like 3 books a year and they made more money. And I was like, oh, and I was like listening, because I was like, wait a minute, I was putting out a bunch of books. And then last year I put out like a third of what I'd done the year before, and I made like double the amount of money. So I'm like, how? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, it doesn't compute. And because I'm thinking more books means more money, and like that. And so then I was really listening to this girl at this point, because I was like, it kind of like, got me. And then she was like, well, to plan what you're going to write, you have to be like realistic with yourself, and, actually block out times for your family, like for all the things that you do, checking your emails, working on marketing, all that stuff. And I was like, okay. So when I started doing that, I was like, okay, well, my little window for writing is a lot smaller. I'm not able to write a chapter a day like I, think I could do or whatever. And so then she was like, once you have that accurate number, and she went through a whole process, and she had like resources you could print off, like papers and stuff to make it easy. And she was basically like, once you figure that out, then you can schedule it. And so I went from thinking I was going to finish a book in 3 weeks to really realistically, I'm going to finish it at the end of February. And at first I was like, no, I can beat that.
Yeah.
Because that's like my competitive nature. And then I was like, no, like, don't do that to yourself. Don't try to beat it. Like, just acknowledge that that's the most you can do. And if you do more, like this weekend, I did a lot more. Yay, go me. But next week, if I only get that 4,000, I'm going to be okay, because I'm still on track,
Right.
And so if I'm thinking, because I've learned this, that maybe this year will not be so stressful and so overwhelming. So that's all. That's my rant.
That's what I'm doing. Is my problem is that I procrastinate. Like, I can procrastinate like nobody's business. And also I can justify like nobody's business. Like, give me any scenario, I will figure out a way to justify it. So then I end up procrastinating until I stress myself out trying to finish a book in, 3 weeks. And I don't want to do that. So that's what I did. I sat down with my calendar. I put down all of the books that I plan on releasing for the year. I counted back about how realistically it would take me to write the book, and when I need to start it, and when I need to have it formatted, like everything. And I felt so much better. I was like riding a high, because all of that pressure and all of that weight had just been released.
Right. Yeah.
And we'll see if I can stick with it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the key, is sticking with it for sure. I hope I can stick with mine, but here we are. My editor's like, oh, can I push back, your editing date? Because it was supposed to be tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, I still got 40,000 words to write. So we can definitely push it back. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, that's the thing. Like I was kind of running up on that kind of thing last year. Like at the end of the year, I had like a book I was supposed to write, and then they asked me if I could move it up like a whole month or whatever. And so I had to like bust it out. And it was so stressful for me. And I just felt like, every day I had to write 1 million words and all this stuff. And I finished it and it turned out great. And I was really proud of it. But I can't do that to myself over and over and over again. Like it's not fair. And it takes a toll on you, like a mental, physical toll on you to always be just so wound up with stress,
Yeah. Well, and it's not good on your family either. I mean, I remember just like coming when I was still working my old job, I would work, 8 to 5, come home, or if I was at home because of the pandemic, immediately switching over from working to writing. And I'm like, I didn't see my husband for like 3 weeks at one point because I would be going to bed at 2 a.m., getting up at 7, and he's already at work and sleeping. So you gotta, like you guys were saying, balance family time, balance, vacations, and balance all the other things you have to do besides write. And it's really important, like work-life balance type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Misty's seen me crash a lot through the years. So like I will work. And then I finally meet my deadline or whatever. And then I just fall into this like, where I'm like zoned out. And she's like, well, what'd you do today? And I'm like, we just binged 11 episodes of this, or I just read all day because my brain was dead. And she's like, good for you. You needed to like take a break. But it's like, I take those when I'm forced to, like where my brain is just totally dead and gives up. And it's like, I'd like to take more time for myself during the week, like schedule some Christy time to just stare at the wall if I feel like it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have a really bad habit of just grinding until you just are meet a wall. You just hit a brick wall and then you're done. And it takes you a few days to recover. And the whole time that you're recovering, you're not enjoying that time. You're stressed out because you feel like you should still be working.
Right. Yeah. And that's really hard. Like, and you guys know, because you work at home and this is your business, you're self-employed. There's always that, I got to do more. I got to do better. I got to make a little bit more, especially when you start making money and then you get used to making that money. And then it's like, I got to at least make that much again, if not more, each time. But it's like, so you're constantly looking at your numbers. You're constantly looking at your output, like all the things. And it's a lot of stuff to, have on you.
Yeah, for sure. So how many books have you written, Chelsea?
4. So I have the Duet that came out first, then These Vow Secrets, which is kind of like an offshoot series of the Duet. And then Head Above Water was my first standalone, and that came out in September. So, but then I have 3 different works in progress that I'm playing with, because I did, what Christy was saying about hitting that wall. Like I wrote Head Above Water in just over a month, and it's 125,000 words. So I just kind of that book poured out of me in a way that I wasn't expecting. And then I hit a very difficult wall because I wasn't allowing myself to feel the emotion of that book while I was writing it to the full extent. So then that all hit me at once, plus that whole working so hard that you just crash. So I was out of the count. I didn't write words for 2.5 months because I just physically couldn't bring myself to sit at my desk and write. So that was really hard. So during that time, I was just here, write, 2,000 words on this, 2,000 words on something else. And then eventually I had 3 or 4 different works in progress that I really wasn't doing anything with. So I finally, in December, I was like, I need to pick something and just go with it. So we're in a good place now. I have one that I'm feeling pretty good about, and hopefully it will be out in February. So I haven't given a date yet, though. I'm not giving a date until I know.
And you write MM.
I do, mostly. I mean, I started off, I was like, I'm going to write River and Rain, have it be MM, and then go back to all these other MF books. I was like, I want to write a book about this and this and this and this. And then all of a sudden I'm like, but writing two men is so much better than writing one. So I just kind of ended up switching all of the characters into gay romance or whatever it might be, in, you know, bi romance or bi awakening, whatever it would be. And I think the only MF books I will be writing will be in that Enclave series. I'll have 3. So, and that's just because it's more realistic for a secret society to not be all gay guys.
Yeah.
So, but
well, oops. I have a hard time switching back and forth too. So like I'll go from writing male, like over and over, and I'm just in a zone. And then it's like I have to write male, female, and I'm like, wait, I forgot the female anatomy, you know?
Right? Yeah.
Go stand in front of the mirror for a little bit.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to have to do the first time I have to write a male female spicy scene, because even though I did write, you know, before River and Rain, all male female romance, I had never actually written a spicy scene. Like I'd always write around it because I was like, I don't know how to do this yet. And then so the first time I'm going to have to do it, I'm going to be like, how does this work? Like
I think you'll get it, because like for you, you're really good at those angsty type scenes. So maybe if you write that scene first where the angst and they're just and all the emotions and stuff, then you'll be like, oh my God, yes, I can totally do this, you know. And it, because then you're like in love with the characters. But right now it just probably seems daunting because just doing male. But I figure that as soon as you get ready to do it, you'll kill it.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. I am very excited about that book, the first MF I have to write, which is Asher's book. I'm very excited to write it, especially because it's like an arranged marriage. They absolutely cannot stand each other trope. Lots of cheating, because why would you ever want to be with the person you're supposed to be married to when you don't want to be married to them? So I am very excited about it, but it's just a very daunting task, especially because I am now known as an MM author. I think a lot of people are only expecting me to write MM. But I don't want to limit myself. I don't want to limit myself to any one thing, which, you know, could make or break it, but we'll see. You know, I'm always willing to take a chance on something one time. So,
well, I was going to tell you, me and Misty have learned that if people like your writing, which they do, they're going to follow you and read whatever, you know. That's
and there are not a lot of readers that will be like, I only read MM. You know what I mean? There's few, but there's not many that kind of enjoy reading all across the board.
And if they find a good author that they like, you know, like for instance, when I started writing MMs, like I hadn't done it before, and so many of my readers were like, I don't know about this, like I don't read this. But then they just couldn't stand the fact that I had put out another book, and everybody was like, oh, this book's so good. And even though it wasn't what they were used to reading, they had the FOMO and they wanted to read it because they trusted me to deliver a good story. And then they were like, oh my gosh, then I read it and I loved it, you know. So they'll do the same for your MF, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, and I absolutely understand what you're saying with that too, because I mean, the first books that got me back into reading romance were Elle Kennedy's Off-Campus series. So, you know, I kept getting, you know, the advertisements on Amazon, you know, how they push books, like, if you liked this, you'll like this. And I kept seeing him all over, and I'm just like, but it's male. I don't think I'll like that. And then here I am becoming an MM author like a year and a half later. And so it's just kind of funny how that, you know, it's so true. Like, you know, I trusted Elle Kennedy. I had never read Serena at the time, but I was like, let's give it a try. And at that point I had already read Wicked Lies, and I was like, okay, let's go for it. Let's just try it, see what happens. And, you know, it did help that I did listen to the audiobooks of both, because Jacob and Teddy together are just a dynamic duo. Like, you can't go wrong with those two.
Yeah.
It was very good audio.
Yes.
Yes,
very good
that audiobook is so good. So good. It's one of my favorites. Oh, and also Try. Why can't I think of
Ella Frank.
Yep,
Yes,
that was
Ella
my
Frank.
first one.
That
Yeah.
audio is really good. That was
I've-
my very first MM.
Yeah, it was my first MM too, but I read it with my eyeballs.
An eyeball reader.
Yeah.
So, do you have a character that just holds a special place in your heart above all of the others?
Yes. River, of course. Everyone knows my love for River, which it's so funny because when I came up with the idea of River and Rain and their story, all I really knew is that I wanted to write a bully romance, lots of angst and tension, that they just hated each other. And basically some of the things I wanted in that book didn't even happen. And because they just kind of took over, they took their own turn in life. And I had thought that Rain would be my favorite character writing it, because I love the broken boys. Every book I read, I loved Cope. Cope is my favorite because he's the broken boy. I same with like Wes, out of Jamie and Wes. Like, I love the ones that are very damaged. So I'm like, I love Rain. Rain's gonna be my favorite. But then I start writing him and I'm like, I relate to you too much. Like, some of the ways you think are too much like me. So I don't really like you as much as I thought. And then River just came out of nowhere and surprised me. And, I was like, wow, like if I created a perfect person for myself, it'd probably be you. He just encompasses just like this little golden retriever. Lots of people call him the golden retriever boy. And it's so true. I do love all my characters in different ways, but he's just so special to me that I don't think anyone will ever top him.
He's my favorite of all of your characters for sure. And
yeah,
he was just like, anytime he would just smile, I was like, I felt his smile through the pages.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I do adore Cannon's character too. But no one meets the standard of River for me at this point. So we'll see. Maybe one day.
Yeah. Well, so far he's my favorite.
Do you have any audiobooks out?
I don't, but I do have one in the works. Head Above Water is coming out in the spring, and I'm really excited. I can't give a date yet. They gave me a date, but I can't give it out yet. But I'm really excited. It's going to be Michael Dean is narrating Easton, and Zachary Johnson is narrating Cannon. So I'm very, very excited for that to be in my ears because I love audio. I've always loved listening to books. And so it's kind of a dream come true when they kind of were like, hey, we're interested in buying this. Do you want to sell it? And I'm like, yes, let's go. Let's do this. So it's scary. It's daunting because it's like going weeks without hearing anything from them. But I am very, very excited to hear the final product soon.
Yay. I'm excited too.
I'm so excited. I very rarely have time to like eyeball read books because I right now I'm just working like 15-16 hours a day. But in the mornings while I'm getting the kids ready, like my AirPods are in my ears and I listen to probably 3 audiobooks a week. So it's very exciting for me. I can't wait for it to be out.
Whenever it comes out, you got to tell everybody so me and Misty are going to buddy listen.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll let you guys know. As soon as I know, I'll get you like a code or whatever has to happen. I don't know when.
It will support you.
Yes, of course.
If you could describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Oh gosh.
Putting you on the
This is
spot.
one of those interview questions that you think you're prepared for, but you're not. Let's see. I guess this is it was 2. Go-getter would be 1. I'm very driven. Independent, almost to a fault. I don't like to ask for help. So when I get stuck on something, I'm very I don't want to bother someone with me needing to work a plot out or something like that. It's very hard for me to ask for help because I was raised to be so independent. And then probably loyal. I don't think that really applies to my job. But I am a very loyal person also to a fault sometimes, but I guess it does apply. I will read, anything an author that I love. I will read anything they write. I will trust them to do whatever. we all know I hate age gap, but I read an age gap by Christy. I still did it because I trust her. So.
You don't like age gap?
I
Right?
don't like age gap. I'm
This is the thing
sorry.
I tease her about all the time because it's my favorite.
It's my favorite too.
I know it is. I see your TikToks about like, what was the TikTok where you're talking about all the different age gaps you wrote in your biker series, but then the last one was no age gap. I'm like, well, that's the one I would read.
I can't help it. I try to not, and then it just happens anyway.
Yep, same.
I shouldn't say that I hate it. Like I can read up to like 10 years, maybe even 12 comfortably, but anything over that, I'm like, oh, cringe a little bit.
But it's not an age gap unless it's like at least 18 years.
Yeah,
Oh
exactly. If they're not doubling the age, then I don't know. I don't
If they
consider that
the
age
dad,
gap.
then I don't want to read it.
Oh.
So tell us what you're writing now, can you?
Yeah, I can tell you. So I am currently writing something that was supposed to come out last year. It's called Don't You Dare. It's a best friends to lovers new adult college romance. One of them plays baseball. The other one is just like this kind of very lonery gamer boy that just keeps to himself, and they're very much like opposites attract. But they've been best friends for years. It kind of works for them, and it's a double bi awakening because they have this first kiss when they're at the end of their high school careers because they're playing this game called Don't You Dare, which is basically truth or dare. But only dares are allowed to happen. And they kiss, and one of them feels something in that moment, and they're like, oh, wow. And they've been curious about it ever since. And it just kind of escalates through a bunch of different dares and into this awakening. And
I want to read that right now.
You know, I did too. I love those kinds of stories where they don't know that they like something, and really maybe they don't, except for that person. Like
yeah. And it was really hard too, because I was like, of course I've never written friends to lovers. I was like, where's the angst in this? That was my issue for a while. I had written like 50,000 words of it, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on with you two because I'm not feeling it. And all of a sudden I just like put it away. I wrote Head Above Water instead, and then wasn't writing anything. And I came back to it, and I'm like, I know what was missing. I found my hole. I figured it out. And now I kind of understand who they are. And I was so like concerned and consumed about like, what are you gonna be? Are you gonna be bi? Are you gonna be coming out as gay? And I'm like, I can't focus on your actual like defined sexuality. I'm just gonna let you tell me what it is. You're gonna tell me, is it only him? Is it everybody? Are you like, how are you gonna take this journey of, you know, a bi awakening? Because I haven't gone through that because I am not a male or bi, and it's just one of those things where you have to really like do your research and kind of figure it out to make sure you're doing it justice to not only people who have gone through it, but also the characters themselves. It's one of those tricky situations where you are writing kind of something that is a little bit more emotionally sensitive to some readers because they have experienced it. So, and it's not something that I've ever written before.
Oh, it sounds amazing. I can't wait.
Yeah.
No.
Christy, can you say what you're working on?
I am writing an age gap. It's a student teacher. I kind of told my Patreon a little bit about it. I gave them some sneak peeks, but basically I feel like I owe my readers a forbidden type story. And this one will be male, female. And I really forgot like how much I like loved writing the taboo treats, you know, and this is kind of falls in that realm, but maybe a little bit darker. I don't know. And anyway, so instead of it being like a bunch of standalones within a world, it's probably going to be more like a series, but I don't know when it's going to come out. Right now, I'd like to just write like several books in the series and just hold on to them for a little while. Just to get some stuff under my belt, and then I won't feel so stressed out about, you know, not having anything in my stuff. But it's been nice just to write without like any kind of stress or or anything, because, you know, sometimes the pressure like gets to me of I gotta do this, I gotta do that, you know. And so I've just been writing and letting them be all angsty and juicy and, you know, doing their forbidden bad things. And so now I'm at like 21,000 words, and I feel like I just started this book. So I'm proud of myself.
So it'll be shorter though.
I don't know. I thought it was gonna be like 50,000 words, but you know, they just kissed and it's 21,000. So I'm thinking it's gonna be a little bit longer.
Yeah. I am also I'm trying to write a shorter book. And it's reverse age gap, which, let me preface this by saying I don't generally enjoy reverse age gaps. That's not my jam. But the characters just kind of came to me. So I was like, okay, all right, fine, I'll write it. I don't know when I'm going to release it. I don't know. I'd like to do a whole series of these like shorter, you know, taboo, forbidden romances, because that's just I just love those so much.
You're awesome.
So we'll see.
I'm excited.
Yeah, Christy and I are kind of aligned with our reading.
I know, like we got right on the same path, didn't we? Like
yeah.
You guys got to teach me how to write shorter books.
I know, you're like the marathon writer.
Yeah.
I know,
yeah.
The mail, and I was like, wow, this is a brick.
Yeah, pretty much.
My longest book was Riley's Biker that I just finished. That's with editing now, and that was like almost 90. And I just felt like this is never gonna end. Like, yeah. I'm just gonna keep going and going. Finally, I had to be like, look, we cannot have a book that's double the length of the other ones. Like, scale it down.
Well, the longest book I've ever written is Heath with Nikki Ash, and that was because it was a retelling of Wuthering Heights, and we like had to hit all these story marks. But in Wuthering Heights, they don't go into all the romance and everything, and so we had to like really like flesh it all out to make it good. So it ended up being like 114,000 words, which was like a nightmare to edit because it was so long. And then my second largest one is probably Dirty Ugly Toy, and I think it's like 98,000 words. And I thought that was a nightmare to edit. So I don't know how Chelsea does these 200,000 word books or whatever.
They're not that long. My longest is 125 and my shortest is 117. So
your shortest is still more than my longest.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm learning. It's because I like to make the spicy scene so long. I blame it on the spice.
And then me and I don't know if me and Misty were talking about this, but that's good to have a really long book for like Kindle Unlimited, because as an author you get paid on pages read. But for me, I tend to write a lot of like, 200-page books that are just punchy, right to the point and steamy and let's get in, let's get out. Those don't really do as well in Kindle Unlimited because there's not as many pages to read. So it's funny how different people write different kinds of things, and how that like changes their business model,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I tried to go wide and took KU out, like I think KU is probably 75% of my income because they are long books. So readers, like when you have a book that is, over 100,000 words, I think putting it into KU is a good thing because, the readers feel like, they're paying whatever it is a month, like $10 a month for KU or something like that. Yeah. And, they get to read like this really long book instead of having to pay $5 a pop for them. They get their money's worth for that $10 a month to read as many as they can. So, but for you guys who do write the shorter books, it makes sense for you to go wide because you wouldn't make the same amount of money in KU.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm battling right now, because this like forbidden taboo series that I'm going to be working on, I'm going to try and go wide, but because they're shorter, I can price them less. And I'm hoping that this will be like my branch out into going wide, but we'll see. I don't know how it'll work.
You just got to do it.
So stressful. And then learning like all of the different retailers.
Yeah.
That's hard. And like, we've just been learning Google Play. Me and my sister, she's been helping me put all my stuff on Google Play, but it's been worth it already. Like, it's already like right under Amazon on earnings. So it's like, okay, Amazon's always my big performer, but now Google Play is like right up underneath it. So I'm like, okay. And then I recently added some stories to Radish, and it's been making some money over there. I mean, it's a very small amount, but I've just barely started. So I'm like, okay, well, that's just like 4 stories with just a few chapters in. Just imagine when I get all my books out there and all the chapters, like I can see that as a good place to have books. So
what is Radish?
It's like an app on your phone that you can read by chapter. It's like serial fiction.
So you like pay per chapter?
You buy coins, and then you spend your coins on the stories, the chapters, and they have like little games and deals and stuff. Like, you can go on there and watch an ad and get some coins, and anyway, it shows you how many coins that you earn from the reads and the views and all that stuff. So
do you write books specifically for Radish, or are you just putting your books into
you can do both, but I've been taking my books and loading each chapter, and I've actually like, I just uploaded Crybaby, and because that one's really steamy, and they said that really steamy books do well over there. So, but like, there was a couple parts I tweaked to make it end more like on a cliffy on the chapter.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like a dead ending, like I wanted it to be like, oh no, what's going to happen?
They would want to continue.
Right. So my books aren't necessarily designed for this, but I'm kind of tweaking them a little to make them fit. So
it's kind of like Vellum in a way, like Kindle Vellum, how they had that serial idea.
Yeah, it's like that, except for I think it's a little more easy to handle, and they advertise, like they've already advertised my book on their homepage. Wow. As like writers we love, and I was like, whoa, how did I get on here? And so they are really good about like cycling people through there and like really keeping it fresh and stuff like that. So I'm enjoying it so far.
Cool. It's interesting. Something else that I want to explore at some point.
Misty lets me be the pioneer, and then what we're going towards and what's not.
Exactly. Like, I don't like learning things, but Christy does. So I just let her learn all the things, and then whatever works, she funnels down to me. And then whatever doesn't work, I don't have to worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Works very, very well for me. So we are to the point of the show where we talk about what we are reading or listening to. Christy, I didn't tell Chelsea that we were doing this, so I'm going to give her a minute.
Okay. Okay, so I'm not listening to anything, and I'm actually not reading anything at the moment because I've been doing all these trainings and like sitting in through all these like classes and seminars and all this stuff. So I've been doing that, but I did get 2 books in the mail that I'm going to read next. And one of them is called, this one's a craft book, and it's called, I don't know if you guys can see that, it's called Emotional Beats.
Ooh.
And it's how to convert your writing into palpable feelings. And it just, just gives examples of, all these different things with emotions and people's eyes and their face and their head and the things that they would do. And so, because I tend to, when you tend to write the same mannerisms and things, and I get so annoyed with myself because as I'm writing them, I'm like, oh, wow, he's widening his eyes again, like, why does he keep doing that or whatever? So this is great because this is going to hopefully help me come up with some new cool stuff. And
I am buying that one right now.
The other one, I don't even remember where I found this one, maybe in the MM group that they suggest things, but it's called The Darkness Outside Us. And someone said it was like the best book they'd read all year. And so I was like, I need this. But and it starts off with 2 boys alone in space. that is like right up my alley. You see why I love this. Like I was like, I need this, and the cover was really pretty. So you've got two boys alone in space. You sold me right there. Just that little tagline. I don't care what it's about. I'm gonna read it. So I think it's YA, but I'm excited.
Are you ready?
Yeah. So I'm actually not listening to anything just because I don't have like the time to listen. But I do have some formatting to do this week. So I plan to start When You Come Back to Me, I think is the name of it, by Emma Scott. Or if You Come Back to Me, I think it's something like that. I want to do that on audio this week. And then I'm not reading anything, but I did just read Frat Wars, the Masters of Mayhem. No, wait. It's the second Frat Wars book by Saxon James. I just beta read it. I think Masters of Mayhem was the first one, but it was really good. It was really steamy. I absolutely loved the characters. So highly, highly recommend that when it comes out.
Cool.
So I fell down a Rena Kent rabbit hole. Like,
I saw that.
I have not been this like just completely engrossed in one singular author for I don't even know how many years. But I listened to, the first one that I listened to was, it must have been Empire of Desire, which isn't in order because hers are all interconnecting in some way from what I understand. But high school, I tend to kind of skip over unless like I'm super into what in her first like 6 are all high school. So I was like, I'll come back to it if I'm really into the one that I was listening to. And I couldn't put it down. I couldn't, like, no matter what I was doing, even in the car, like with my kids, I disconnected my Bluetooth and connected it to my AirPods just because I could not stop listening. So then I flew through that one. I flew through Reign of King and Rise of Queen, which were technically before Empire of Desire, but they all stand alone or whatever. And then my friend told me that in Red Thorns, there's Primal Play. And so I jumped the timeline ship and I started that one today. You guys!
I don't even know
what. Oh my God! It is so good. So good.
What is Primal Play? Like, does one of them pretend to be a monkey or something? I mean, like, I don't know.
Okay, I don't want to spoil the book, but he lets her, like, he tells her to run in the forest. And she just runs and he just chases her. And it's like she's still unsure about the guy, so she's not even sure if like things are gonna go okay once he catches her. But she takes off and he chases her, and it is so hot. It is so hot. It is so good.
I didn't realize this was a thing. I didn't realize I was into it.
I didn't realize that was what it was called.
Right?
Yeah, you will be into it. You have to either listen to it or read it, because like I'm putting on my makeup today and listening to it, and like I'm sweating, like my heart is palpitating in my chest, and I'm like, because I'm not even sure what he's gonna do when he catches her. Like, is this gonna go okay, or is this gonna go really dark really quick? And it was okay, and it was so good. I'm freaking obsessed, and I just can't. And this one is a duet, which I'm super excited about because I never want to leave this world for the rest of my life. So yeah.
I didn't know what that was called. I mean, I've read in Pepper Winter's Fables of Happiness, there's a scene.
Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't know that's what it was called, but I've read stuff like that. And it's like, you're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? What's going on? What are you gonna do? So I can see that I'm gonna pick that up, Misty.
You have to, and then you have to message me after this first scene, because and she writes really, really good characters, and it like has that dark undertone that I just love. So yeah. Sorry, I got really excited, really worked up, and I'm already sweaty. I'm like, can we get this over with? I need to go back to that.
She's got her AirPods in. She's listening to it as we speak.
If I could split, I would have. Yeah, it's been a long time since like I've attached to an author so much, and she does not do social media really at all. And so I have no way to fangirl, and it's driving me nuts. Like I just want to I want to write to her and be like, I'm obsessed, and there's no way to do it, and it made me really sad.
Well, you need to be like me and just like hunt down their email. Like that's
right.
I hunt them down on email, and then I'm like,
ooh, maybe I'll do that.
Love letter.
Yeah. Maybe I'll do that. I'll do that today, actually. When we all go to write after this and meet inside the O-Write, you guys are going to be working on your works in progress, and I'm going to be writing a love letter to Rena Kent. I got 20,000 words in today, guys. It's all to a letter.
Right?
Rena Kent.
I love you and your primal stuff so much.
Yeah, she has some really good alpha holes, and the stories are just really, the last one, Reign of a King and Rise of a Queen, just the overall story was just so good. And like, okay, I'm done.
Obsessed.
Misty doesn't rave that often, so when she does, you know she really likes it.
Yeah.
And then I'm all reading Triple Threat, which is really good, and I wanted to finish it last night so bad, but I took my gummy and it just knocked me out. So I was done, but I'm hoping to finish that one today, and it is so good. And I'm so mad at you because I was convinced that you would never make me like these triplets. Like, how convinced of that was I?
You were convinced 100%.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah. And so now I'm 70% in, and I'm like, I kind of like them.
Right? And you haven't even got to book 2 where you're gonna love them. So
kind of mad at you over it because I really wanted to hate them.
I know.
And even like parts of this one, it brings back that hate. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is really confusing for me. I don't know how to do this.
There was a lot of people that were like, I wasn't going to read that book because I hated them so much, but then everybody was reading it, and then I was jealous, so I read it, and now I love them and I hate you.
Yeah.
So I'm
that's like, exactly where I'm at.
You know, I like to play with your feelings.
I know. Yeah. Okay. If we go any longer, our producer yells at us.
Yes, he does. Okay. Yeah, we are past the hour. He gets on to us, you're wasting your time or whatever. I don't even know what he says, but he says, y'all went over an hour.
Yeah. So if you enjoy our show, please leave us a comment. Make sure you subscribe to on Spotify. We are on YouTube. Chelsea was like, I don't have to get ready, right? It's just audio. I'm like, I don't know that we're YouTube stars with our 40 subscribers.
Right? Not 40K, 40.
Yeah.
Soon to be 45.
So make sure you follow us over there and drop us a comment. Let us know if there is somebody else that you would like us to have on our show. We love having guests, and we absolutely loved having you, Chelsea. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks for inviting me. It was fun.
Yeah, it was.
And we will see you 2 weeks from now. Bye, everybody.